court,
Thank you.
State of Ohio, members of the jury, good afternoon again. When I first learned of this incident, I learned through the media, like a number of you, and I said to myself, what crazy person would kill a 3-year-old child? Those are my words. I said, this world is going to hell. And as fate would have it, I get assigned to the case. And then I began learning about this woman right here. I came to understand that there was mental illness. I came to understand how this came to be. The elephant in the room is this. You have a 3-year-old child whose life was taken from him. Not by his fault, not by his mother's fault. Bionca caused the death of that child. And we all know that this family doesn't deserve this. I implore you to embrace your humanity. It's okay to feel the pain that they're going through. If watching life-saving measures, trying to save a kid's life, if listening to a mother asking if her child is alive doesn't move you, then I question your humanity. If seeing photos of a deceased child, listening to a parent's pain, listening to a mother having to leave out of this courtroom, if that doesn't move you, then I don't know what could. Again, I question your humanity. Knowing that the bail can't be unwound. Because I know a lot of lawyers will tell you, you got to set this aside. You can't set that aside. But guess what? You have an oath. And no matter how much courage it takes or how challenging this is for you, you said during jury selection that you would follow that oath. Now, Mr. Johnson and I, we have to concede that this case emotionally is difficult. I watched you cry during this case. I've been practicing for 31 years. This is one of 3 cases where I felt as you did. That's okay. But you also made a pledge that when you make a decision in this case, it will not be based on sympathy. And you can feel the emotions that you must have experienced during this trial, but still make the correct decision. So, when Ms. Patel tells you that Mr. Mack said in his opening statement that Bionca's responsible, that's true. Even though it's not evidence, that's true. Now I'm telling you in my closing argument that she is responsible for the death of Julian, and you should find her guilty of murder, keeping in mind not guilty by reason of insanity being a defense, and you should find her guilty of the felonious assault as it relates to Margot and a number of the other charges. The aggravated murder and the attempted murder, I'll talk about that later. Look, when this case began, Bionca had options. She could either plead not guilty, she could plead guilty, or she could plead not guilty by reason of insanity. By now you know what she chose. Your job is not to focus on penalty, no matter which side you come down with respect to this. The state's strategy in this case has really been to normalize Bionca. They make the acknowledgement, and they have to concede because they can't get around it, that she's mentally ill. But they want to normalize her behavior on that day. She was in control. She was well organized. Her mind was working separate and apart from her schizophrenia. There was nothing normal about Bionca Ellis on June 3rd. There's nothing normal about her behavior. I want you to look at Bionca Ellis. 1 week from the date of the incident. She's at her arraignment. She's smiling at her arraignment. Even though it's been put forth to her that she could possibly receive the death penalty. Who smiles? Who does that 1 week after this incident? Not someone normal. But guess what? More than a year later, she's medicated now. This is what you've seen throughout the course of the trial. Take a look at it. When someone's medicated, they're confined, their schizophrenia isn't active, they're not hallucinating. Those are two different people. But even then, 1 week after, weeks after, months after, her mental illness was still active. It hadn't even ceased by the time that June 10th came around at her arraignment. They want to tell you that Bionca has to tell you what exactly she's hearing in her head. Bionca has to give you this theme that they've come up with that's not even in the diagnostic statistical manual. There's no authority for that. You can believe some, none, or all of what a witness says, even if they're an expert. Even if the narrative is trying to logically make sense. Think about it. And the doctor is mistaken, because I won't say the other word, but he's mistaken. Those are his words, well organized. He says that Bionca was well organized when you look at her behavior on June 3rd. He's the one that introduces rage. I can't get up and say it, but if you look at that interview, he introduces this concept of rage. Those are his words. She feeds him back what he's discussing. And if someone is well organized on the date of the incident, she rolls up to the police station in a wheelchair, and eventually she pushes that wheelchair. She has some conversation about money. And then she leaves her wheelchair and her suitcase at the police station. She walks into Volunteers of America. She selects a couple of knives. She walks out. She walks into the next store, Things Outlet, with knives. And then she goes to Giant Eagle. Eventually she sees Margot and Julian, follows them out, and the incident occurs. The state would have you believe that this was all volitional, normal behavior. She goes into Volunteers of America, and she does in fact select two knives. Their theory is that this is about her anger about what happened at the police station of not getting her money. She walks into an unauthorized area while in Volunteers of America. She always has the knives out in the open. The first person that she has interaction with is the manager at Volunteers of America, an elderly woman. She doesn't stab her. She walks around the store. She stabs no one in Volunteers of America, and she takes a knife and she walks past the cash register. In the open. Both knives. It's not normal behavior. There's something that's going on there. And then she walks into Things Outlet. And the prosecutor would have you believe that, oh, she's hiding knives. If she wanted to hide knives, she could have concealed them underneath her clothing. She has both of her hands on her hips. When you go back there, look at that video. Her hands are on her hips and she's looking around. Because whatever's happening right here is dictating her behavior. She doesn't see what she's looking for. She comes out, she taps a knife on the pillar, and she loses one knife. She walks with the knife in the open, outside. Now, the doctor can talk all he wants about, well, it's crowded inside of the store. You saw how many cars are out there in the parking lot. Bionca can't predict who's getting in and out of their cars. It's crowded, it's in the middle of the day, it's 3 o'clock. And I know you had to pay attention when she's walking with the knife, when she enters the store, and she walks past what appears to be an elderly gentleman, a woman coming. None of those people get stabbed, despite her motive being rage. Only when she sees Margot and Julian does she do this U-turn. Now, I want to pause there for a second. Because I'm not going to pretend like I'm a psychiatrist or a psychologist or any kind of doctor for that matter. But you're allowed to use your collective minds, all 12 of you, to try to figure out, based on the evidence, what was going on there. Why is it that Bionca, if she's so upset about her money, why is it taking her so long to stab somebody? We know it doesn't happen at the Volunteers of America. We know it doesn't happen at Things Outlet. We know that she doesn't go back to the police station and take her anger out on the people that wouldn't give her her money. So what's going on? You're allowed to consider whether or not she was hallucinating, whether or not she was experiencing a command hallucination that led her to the sacrifice or the death of the first child that she saw. You're allowed to consider that. And maybe my thought isn't the best about that. But it feels to me like, in her mind, whatever she's hallucinating about, it has something to do with the child. Because she avoids all these other people that she could have taken her rage and her anger out on. Take 2 steps back. And I ask you, I just really want you to think about this. Does it make sense for Bionca to be angry about money that she didn't receive from a police department, to seek a 3-year-old child out and stab a 3-year-old child because she was feeling that anger and that rage? Commonsensically, does that make sense? We know that immediately following the incident, she walks away. That's what the State of Ohio's witnesses told you. She walks away as if nothing had occurred, like a walk in the park. And she continues to walk with that knife in hand. And the only time that she puts that knife down is when she's confronted by the police. That's not the behavior of someone who's criminal-minded. I haven't handled any cases like that. Someone walking away from the incident and doesn't put the weapon down and they walk away. Whatever's going on in their head, it is still happening at that moment in time. If you were to take Dr. Knopfsinger's opinion at face value. The only way that she could have been psychotic or having this insane moment would have been for her to stab Julian in the store, sit down right there, don't run, make sure you leave the knife because you don't want to leave fingerprints, and then tell the police or whoever else would listen that she had this experience of wanting to kill a child. It's easy for someone that's been practicing medicine for 30 years to get up here and mislead. Because I guarantee you that what he says should have happened, it's not required in the DSM-5. This very authority that he has to rely upon, there's nowhere that says that you are required, if you're mentally ill, to articulate what you're hallucinating. You can believe some, all, or none of what a witness says. And again, I have to be mindful that you are deeply impacted by the fact that a 3-year-old child lost his life. I get that. That's why she's admitted to the murder of Julian, admitted to the felony assault of Margot. But you just can't brush not guilty by reason of insanity under the rug because it exists in this case. Even at the police station. She's interviewed for a period of 6 or 7 minutes. Keep in mind that she never says a word to anyone other than the manager at Volunteers of America, where she allegedly asked, "Where's the restroom?" But throughout this whole ordeal, she doesn't have a conversation. In that interview, the detective tries to interview her, and her focus is on the money. And eventually she says, "You can put the Giant Eagle investigation into that investigation." That makes no sense. And when she yells attorney, she's not talking about the Giant Eagle situation. Please watch that interview. She's talking about the money situation. You got to keep in mind that this woman was in jail May 29th. And there's an officer that identified the fact that she's not mentally well. It's just a couple days before this incident. The state has made a concession that there's severe mental disease. They acknowledge that there's schizophrenia. You heard from Dr. Tesla, you heard from Dr. West, that even when they interviewed her, a month later, her psychosis is still active. She's still mentally ill. She's still disorganized, and Dr. West does explain disorganization. Whatever was going on in her head never stopped. And keep in mind that no one ever came here and told you that insanity has to last for 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 days. I appreciate the prosecutor coming up here and talking about aggravated murder, but that argument is not a good argument. You don't need me to tell you that there was no prior calculation and design as it related to the death of Julian. You see how random she chose them, and that's at a spur of the moment. And no one can say what was in her head when she was in Volunteers of America. How is she going to tell you what was in her head in Volunteers of America if Dr. Knopfsinger or Dr. West couldn't? Don't fall for that. The reason why I said the attempted murder, the reason why I say the attempted murder is not a good charge because the focus appeared to be always on Julian. Margot, to her credit, did what any good mother would do. She tried to save Julian's life. And she got stabbed in the process just one time. If Bionca wanted to murder her, she would have stabbed her several times. And I don't know what world they're living in when it comes to rage. Rage is not 1, 2, or 3 stabs. It's horrific what happened, but that's not rage. it's very important that you understand preponderance of the evidence. Please read that instruction. If it had to be quantified, more probable, the greater weight of the evidence, those are terms that you've heard. But if it had to be quantified, it's 51% to 49%. That's our burden. Far less than what they have to prove, which we've conceded to a number of the counts for proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You cannot make a decision without considering that burden. I welcome you to have, in one hand, Dr. Nottinger's opinion, and in another hand, have Dr. West's opinion, and see which one makes the most sense. You're going to see, when you have the jury instructions, you can just focus on me, then I'm going to go to his opinion. You're going to see words in the instruction that talks about, NGRI can't be motivated. So no motive. You know that there's no motive to take the life of Julian in this case. There's never been one established. Even though generally the state doesn't have to prove motive, you have to take into consideration what's in the jury instructions. We know that this wasn't some impulsive behavior. Margot did what she was supposed to do. She took her son to the store, was shopping. She did nothing to provoke Bionca. So there's no emotional response that can be identified through the evidence. There's no impulsive behavior. And again, the word rage is something that Dr. Nottinger introduced. We don't agree with that. We don't agree that she demonstrated rage. We agree that her act was wrong. The opinions in this case between both doctors are not equally balanced. You'll see language like that as well. Again, put those opinions side by side. And I guarantee you that if you truly objectively read them, you'll understand that Dr. West speaks of the insanity aspect of this much better than Dr. Nottinger does, and it makes more sense. So, in his opinion, pages 35, 36, and 37, and he sort of speaks two ways about this. But on page 35, under 2A, he talks about how Bionca interacted calmly with staff through a window. She did not display any objective signs of her severe mental disease. I don't know how he would be in a position, based on the video that we saw, for him to make that determination. But he thinks that because he's a psychiatrist and his words are powerful, that you're just going to latch on to that, especially with these inflammable facts. He goes on to say in section B, she did not appear distressed or internally stimulated in Volunteers of America. On the one hand, she's walking with strong purpose. She's got this rage, but she doesn't appear to be distressed. He goes on in section D, he talks about she still does not appear to be distressed, internally stimulated, or out of control. In the Giant Eagle surveillance videos, he says that Bionca was well organized in her actions, did not appear to be internally stimulated, hallucinating, or disinhibited. What's well organized about walking into a store with a knife in your hand, walking with a knife where everyone can see the knife, and just walking around aimlessly until you latch on to those two people? What's well organized about that? Again, in section E, he talks about how Bionca didn't report symptoms of severe mental disorder, nor display objective signs of severe mental disorder. That's not required. Otherwise, he would have cited that as being authority from the DSM-5. How would he know? And this requirement of her having to report her symptoms, it'd be fine if he identifies some authority that they can all agree upon, but you will not see that in his report. We're on to page 36, under 3. He indicates that, and we've talked about this, defendant approached the victims from behind, which indicates the defendant believed the victims would perceive the offenses were wrong. Again, just look at the totality of the evidence. Look at the knife in hand. When she first walks by them, the knife is not concealed. In section F, under 3, he talks about how she didn't announce her presence. I just want you to look at all these factors, and you tell me, even commonsensically, if this makes sense. Dr. Nafsinger had the benefit of interviewing Bionca when she's medicated. She's better able to communicate. Never had the ability to interview her early on, like Dr. West. He's got the benefit of incorporating everyone else's reports into his own report. That's the reason why it's so long, amongst other reasons. Mr. Johnson's going to get up here and he's going to tell you about the not guilty by reason of insanity through Dr. West's eyes. And I would ask that you listen to him. And I appreciate your time. I believe that at the end of the day, she should be found not guilty by reason of insanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Mr. Johnson, final thoughts?
May it please the court.
Thank you.
State of Ohio, Polk County. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I too want to thank you because this was a difficult situation. And every last one of you paid close attention to everything that was displayed. You heard from experts. You've seen evidence. And you witnessed the painful details of a tragedy. But make no mistake, we're not denying that this tragedy happened. It's about understanding the mind behind the tragedy. We heard from doctors, psychiatrists. Everyone said something a little different. But you have to use your common sense and judgment. At the end of the day, we have the tale of two doctors, and it has to make sense. The law asks you to determine whether Bionca Ellis, at the time of the offense, was suffering from a severe mental disease or defect, and renders her incapable of understanding the wrongfulness of her actions. That's the legal standard. Now, Dr. West, Dr. Testa, they both seasoned psychiatrists. They testified through the throes of schizophrenia, paranoid delusions, disconnected from reality. These symptoms weren't new. We learned over the years, she's been going through this time and time again. We have jail logs. She's in different states. Behavior does not change because she's on medication. Now, Dr. Nafsinger says, well, that's not a part of schizophrenia. But when you look at the evidence, when she's unmedicated, she's not in her right state of mind. You heard from him. 3 people were assaulted at North Coast Behavior when she was not on her medication. Dr. Nalsinger dismissed these symptoms as self-serving. He said he relied on surveillance footage, jail calls. Look at how he interpreted those things. It's through a lens of skepticism. He told you, well, I looked at the video and I didn't see any signs. I didn't see anything where she was talking to herself, but I asked him, I said, well, there's no audio, it's not the best video. How do you know what she's hearing? No, based on the facts, I don't think she has any excuses for her behavior. And the problem with video is, when I slowed it down and showed him a still shot of her in the thing's outlet, she was looking up and to the right. Well, that doesn't make sense. If she's going there looking for water, and I asked him, I said, well, water's not going to be up and to the right, is it? Well, no. Well, what if, I asked him, what if she's hearing something and she looks up to see what's talking to her? But he dismissed that. And I think he didn't slow the video down. Videos, when they're in constant motion, you don't see everything. The illness clouded her judgment. And she did not know the wrongfulness of her actions. Because we heard from Dr. West. She's a seasoned psychiatrist. She spent a lot of time with Bionca. We spent time together with Bionca. And the video you saw her in arraignment, that's the Bionca I met. That's the Bionca that Dr. West met. She wasn't in her right state of mind. But the person you see right here is not the same person. Why? Because she was medicated. Now, Dr. Nalsinger said she scurried away from the scene quickly. And I asked him, I said, wait a minute. Let's look at the video. Let's bring it back. He said she rapidly walked away, trying to get away, trying to evade detection. But that doesn't make sense, ladies and gentlemen. She's walking with a bloody knife in her hand. She's not running. Now, you seen her at the police station. You seen her. She skipped down the steps rather quickly. So we know she can move at a fast pace if she desires to do so. But that wasn't the case after this. She walked away slowly. Mr. Bush pulled up and said, hey, you know you just stabbed that kid. It wasn't a rational answer. Shrugged her shoulders. You had to ask yourself why. What state of mind was she in? She didn't know she just did something wrong. These behaviors are also consistent with psychosis. Individuals suffering from schizophrenia may still follow commands and flee due to paranoia. We heard that from Dr. West. She told you, just because a person's in psychosis don't mean they can't follow instructions. Now, Dr. Nalsinger said, well, these things are self-reported. He basically said, I take it with a grain of sand, but I didn't believe anything she said. But he said, you got to ask her, because that's one factor that they look at. Well, she didn't say the right things. He made it appear that there's a playbook of what people with schizophrenia and people who are delusional are supposed to say when they commit a crime. Well, this is not the Browns. There's no playbook. She told him in that interview, you're going to have that interview back there. And she keeps saying over and over and over again, I blinked out. I heard voices. That skeptic eye goes, I don't think so. Not a good enough answer for me. But he said, Dr. Nelson acknowledged, that's a key factor, self-reporting. But he didn't listen to her. He didn't take any of it in for his conclusion. He dismissed it. Now keep in mind, he had her longer than most people interrogate suspects. She's in a cold room for 3 hours, no water, no break, and he's pressing her. He's pressing her. Do you think she wasn't tired of sitting there wanting to go? Listen to the video. He entered his rage. He brought it up because he knows it's one of those elements in the law that you're going to read about that you can't use. Mr. Mack talked about the motive. Well, she was angry about this money. The fact that she walked past several people and didn't do anything has to mean something. The fact that when she walked in, she's swinging a knife around. That's not organized behavior. If you're planning to kill someone, you're not walking into Giant Eagle with a big butcher knife swinging, because it screams out, hello, what's going on? The sad thing is, no one in Giant Eagle even paid attention. I don't know if they was trying to avoid looking at her, trying to act like she wasn't there. She walked around with a butcher knife, and I'm thinking, who can walk through a store with a butcher knife and not the police not be called? The police are less than 2 minutes away. I'm thinking, did Volunteers of America have loss prevention? She walked right past the cashiers and not even stopped to pay. No one called the police and said, hey, this lady just stole the butcher knife. So when you talk about this timeline, this is a sad sequence of events that somehow it could have been prevented, but it wasn't. So we're stuck with what happened. And what happened was a tragedy. And it wasn't because she wanted to kill someone. It wasn't because she set out that day to kill someone. She told you, and you're going to hear in the video, she goes, I didn't think I would throw my life away like this. I had other plans. I didn't think I would throw my life away like this because I had other plans. She wanted to move to Florida. She talked about Disney. I put in applications for Disney. Dr. West states in her opinion, with reasonable medical certainty, that at the time of the events on 6/23/2024, Ms. Ellis was suffering from severe mental disease, schizophrenia. That's just one problem. We know that because everyone talked about the one problem. We know for 10 years she was schizophrenic. But what Dr. West did was to listen to Bionca. She listened to her rationale behind what she did. She listened to her about saying there's voices. She talked about the suicide. You're going to hear all this. You're going to have both. You're going to have both reports there. You got to use your common sense and judgment and say which one makes more sense. A lot of the reasons that Dr. Nelson put out there, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. No one was trying to hide. No one was trying to run. He goes, well, when she got apprehended, she didn't say, the devil made me do it. She didn't say anything. That's a part of her disorganized thinking. When she got to the room the next day with Detective Jones, her mind was on, where's this debit card? Where's this money that they took from me? He cannot say with a degree of certainty that he knows what she heard or didn't hear. Because when you look at that still shot that's in our photo, she's looking up to the right. Something has her attention. She's not looking straight ahead. She's not trying to hide the knife. He said, well, she's hiding the knife. And like Mr. Mack said, it was behind her back. Her hands were on her hips. The knife was in her hands. Listen closely at her interview, because she explains away everything, what she was thinking. But when she gets pushed, when she hears those words, well, I'm about to give you some pushback. She listened to the authority. She let him push back. At the end, and you're going to have Dr. West's opinion, she opined with reasonable medical certainty that the time of the incident, 6/3/24, Ms. Ellis had a severe mental disease, schizophrenia, and it caused her not to know what she was doing was wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, based on those facts, everything that you heard here today, you have no choice, and we'd ask you to find her not guilty by reason of insanity. Thank you.